Picture this, if you will. It's the 1960s. I'm some sort of young, affluent professional selling some sort of business things. Cheese, maybe. And I need a car that matches my status. I don't want a big Vauxhall Cresta because they're cumbersome and the 3-litre engine will be thirsty. And I can't have something as poverty-stricken as a Ford console, not with that 1.5-litre engine. So where does that leave me? Well, in the hands of Rover, one might argue. Hello and welcome to the Rover P6. Yes, today I have the keys to this. It's a 1965 Rover P6 2000. And today we're going to have a proper look around it. Inside now, under the bonnet, we're even going to get it out on the road. And after all that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I think. So let's get into it. My word, it is tremendously windy today, but we're going to power through nonetheless. Introduced in 1963, the Rover P6 was a revolutionary model both for Rover and the British automotive market in general. Standing as a midpoint between lower-end cars such as the Ford console and higher-end saloon cars such as the 3-litre Vauxhall Cresta, the P6 was a breath of fresh air that appealed to young, affluent buyers. You see, the big Vauxhall Cresta, yes, was luxurious, but it was cumbersome and heavy, and young buyers wanted something a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more fun, and a little bit more advanced, and the P6 ticked those boxes very comfortably. Taking over from the very successful P4, the P6 was a very advanced car for its era. The 1950s had seen massive advancements in automotive technology, and the P6 really utilised them, with disc brakes at all four corners, the Dion rear suspension, and unibody construction. It was quite the modern thing for its time. The P6 was a great success, with the first Series 1 cars selling around 210,000 units between 1963 and 1970. Available in a variety of trims, engine tunes and specs, it was the car to have for the young, suave, cool new kid on the block who wanted to show his mates, I've got a good job. Inside the P6, well, that was Rover at its very best. Incredibly comfortable seats front and rear, a good level of fit and finish, and lots of different things such as a clock and some gauges and fog lights. It was a very well laid out cabin. There was so much room front and rear. Headroom was aplenty. I'm not a particularly big person, but I can attest to the fact that I've got more than enough room in here. In the early days, the P6 was sold simply as the 2000, owing to this, an inline-4 2-litre engine producing around 104 brake horsepower. As time went on, the 2000 TC was introduced in 1966, originally intended just for export markets such as North America and continental Europe, though Rover changed their mind on that right at the end. The TC, well, that stood for twin carb. Instead of this single carb setup, a twin SU carburetor setup was put onto this engine to increase horsepower and overall performance. At this point, the standard single carb engine cars were badged as 2000 SCs, single carbs. Hopefully, you're still with me. As the decade drew to a close, the 3.5-litre Buick V8 was shoehorned into this car, and so the Rover P6 3500 was born, greatly improving overall performance and adding a thumping great V8 soundtrack. Towards the end of production, the 2000 was phased out in favour of the 2200, which was effectively the same sort of setup but with a 2.2-litre engine to get around emissions. Gearboxes, well, you could either get a 4-speed manual transmission in one form or another, or a Borg-Warner 3-speed automatic, either with overdrive or without. For the early point of V8 production, it was only available as an automatic, but towards the end of that, a manual transmission was introduced, and these cars were badged as the 3500S. I've thrown a lot of stats at you there, but the general basis is that all of the engines were very good and quite highly regarded. Pretty reliable, and parts were readily available and cheap to buy. Still to this day, that is the case. So, we've had a good little look around the P6. I guess that leaves one thing, getting it out on the road. The Rover P6 2000. Let's get her out on the road and see what it's like. I think the first thing that really strikes me about this P6, and in fact every P6 I've been in, is that they are incredibly smooth. You could be forgiven for thinking that you're in a modern luxury car. It just feels very robust and solid. It swallows up any imperfection in the road, and you really do just waft along. I'm in the 2-litre variant of the P6 today, and yes, I do feel like I'm missing out on a fair few cylinders. That 3.5-litre V8 at the front would be a lovely addition right about now, but this 2-litre unit is a very good engine. I'm sitting at 45-50 miles an hour at the moment, and it's very, very comfortable. It doesn't feel strained, it doesn't feel sluggish, it's not the fastest, but that's not really what this car's about. If I do need to put my foot down, it does get up and go to an extent. It's not rapid, the power delivery isn't instant, but it is very linear and very solid. There's no jagged sort of jolting, it just does what it needs to do, and it does it in a very sedate manner. I've got the 4-speed manual gearbox in this particular car, and as gearboxes go from this era, it's one of the better ones. The throws are quite nice and the length of the gears is very good. That being said, the positioning, in my opinion, just seems a little bit off, just sort of from an ergonomic perspective. First really sort of appears where I'd expect third to be. Everything's a little bit further over than I would argue it ought to be. The road holding is, well, as you'd expect for a big old Rover. It's okay, but there is a hell of a lot of body roll as you go into the corners. It really does sort of lumber itself through the bends, but it does make for quite a fun little ride. It really is a comfortable car, this thing. I feel like I've taken an old grand piano or a Chesterfield armchair out for a drive. My only real critique of this car is that it's a heavy old thing, physically and just in everything about it. The steering is ridiculously heavy, especially as you get down into lower speeds. I had to do a 3-point turn in this earlier, and it just took so much work. And I know a lot of the older people watching this will say, well, yes, that's what cars were like back in the day. But I think compared to a lot of other saloon and big cars of this era, the P6 feels particularly heavy, heavier than most. So then, the Rover P6, what do I think? Well, if you'd have asked me 5 years ago, I probably would have said something to the effect of, bleh, a boring old Rover. But I think recently, this car has really aged very, very gracefully, and I actually quite like it now. Having spent some time with it, that has probably boosted my opinion. They're well-styled, incredibly comfortable and spacious, usable classic cars. There's a reason these have such an enthusiast following, and so many of them are preserved. Parts are cheap and readily available, and the engines are pretty reliable overall. There's very little not to like with a P6, and I think if you buy one that's been looked after, it will look after you. Thank you very much for watching the video review of our lovely 1960s Executive Express, the Rover P6 2000. I do hope you've enjoyed. If you like this sort of thing, please check out our other video reviews. And remember, if you have a classic car to sell, please get in touch with us at classiccarbuyer.co.uk. We'd love to hear from you. I'm going to go inside before the wind blows my camera over.